Have you ever fallen in love with a home that you couldn't buy? Not because it was too expensive, but because you weren't ready. Maybe your home wasn't sold, or your financing wasn't in place, or maybe you were just browsing. And suddenly, there it is, the unicorn house. Perfect location, perfect layout, perfect everything. It checks the boxes and then some, and then the worst happens. One day, just like that, it's gone. Sold to someone else, while you were still trying to get ready. And here's the part that no one warns you about. After that, everything else feels like a letdown. No matter what comes up, you're comparing it to the one that got away. Even homes that are in your price range that do make sense suddenly feel like compromises. You're not just house hunting anymore, you're chasing a feeling, and that feeling, it can stall your move for months, even years. So the question is, how do you protect yourself from that emotional trap without lowering your standards? In this video, we're gonna break down what happens when you fall in love with a house that you're not ready to buy, how looking outside of your budget can quietly sabotage your momentum, and finally, how to approach the process with clarity before you get stuck on something you just can't have. This isn't about playing it safe. It's about setting yourself up to win when the right house actually comes along. And by the end of this video, you'll understand how I'm just looking can quietly become the reason that you don't end up moving at all.
Only get one chance to buy or sell your next home. Let's get it right.
It's worth mentioning, my name's Darin, a real estate professional based right here in White Rock and South Surrey. And I've been helping families buy and sell homes here since all the way back to 2007. I worked with hundreds of people over the years, many of whom found me right here on this very YouTube channel. So if you're thinking about making a move and want some smart local advice with zero pressure, just real insight, there's a link in the description of this video to book a time with me and my team. We'll help you make sure that you make the right move and do it with confidence. All right, so let's be clear right from the start. This video is not about telling you to lower your standards. It's not about crushing your dream home or playing it safe for the sake of safety, but it is about recognizing how easy it is to fall into a trap that doesn't feel risky until it is. And it's one that stings so many would-be home buyers. And one of the problems is it often doesn't feel risky at the time. Only in hindsight, would-be home buyers don't recognize that doing things the wrong way has cost them time, opportunity, and effectively put their life on hold. Because here's the truth. Most buyers don't stall because of bad luck. They stall because they fell in love with the wrong house at the wrong time. Not wrong because it wasn't beautiful, but wrong because it wasn't available, at least just not to them. And once that emotional imprint is made, it's hard to move forward. You do what every buyer does. You start comparing, you start waiting, you start hoping that something just like the one comes back, but maybe for a better price or at a more convenient time. Or when you're finally ready, that's the stall. And it happens to people all the time. So this video is here to bring that pattern into light so you can see it for what it is. It's not a failure, it's not a mistake, it's just common, just a very human reaction to an emotionally charged moment. So from here, let's unpack why looking at homes outside your affordability creates unrealistic expectations, why not being ready to act can cost you more than just one home, and what the safer, more stable process actually looks like when done with intention. So let's start with the first trap. What happens when you start looking just a little outside of your price range? So it usually starts pretty harmless. You bump up your price filter just a little bit, right? You're curious. You want to see what else is out there. You're dreaming, and honestly, that's completely normal, but here's the catch, and it's a big one. Once you've seen homes outside of your budget, you simply cannot unsee them. Suddenly, everything in your actual price range feels like a letdown. The kitchen feels smaller, the finishes feel cheaper, the neighborhoods feel like a compromise. And even if those homes are objectively great, you're no longer comparing them to reality. You're comparing them to something that was never truly affordable in the first place because you're looking at homes setting your bar at a price point that you cannot afford. That does something subtle but powerful. It kills your motivation. You're not excited to act anymore. You are hesitant. You feel like buying means settling. So what do? You wait. You stall. You start thinking maybe that kind of home will drop in price, or we'll just wait until the perfect one shows up in our price range. But here's what most people find out the hard way. That perfect home, it rarely exists at the price that you want. And even if it does, someone else gets there first because they were ready and they actually had the money to buy it. There's also an emotional cost to this. Once your expectations are shaped by a home you couldn't afford, everything else gets measured against that and nothing will compare. Even if you eventually find something well within your means, it can feel like you settled, not because the home was wrong, but because you were anchored to a benchmark that was never realistic to begin with. Some buyers try to force it. They stretch, they borrow more money, they justify it in the moment, and sometimes that leads to financial strain. Sometimes it leads to regret, and often it leads you right back to square one. And here's one more belief that quietly fuels this entire problem. It's the assumption that the seller will negotiate. Buyers see a home slightly out of reach and think, okay, it's listed at $750,000, but we'll offer $650,000. They'll probably take it. And yes, some sellers do negotiate. In fact, most do. But assuming that they'll have to, or assuming that you're the only one interested, or assuming that your offer is doing them a favor, or assuming that they will jump at an incredibly low price compared to where they're listed, well, this is where things start to fall apart. Because here's the truth, and I really want you to hear me when I say this. The only price that you can safely build your plan around is the asking price. Every dollar below that is a bonus, not a strategy. Basing your budget on hopeful negotiation gives you false confidence and often a painful letdown when the seller says no or someone else comes in with a stronger offer. I meet buyers all the time who expect sellers to knock off 15 to 20% without hesitation. But even in the toughest markets I've seen since 2007, the average sale price usually lands somewhere between 95% and 100% of the asking price. Those huge home run discounts people dream about, they are just not the norm. I want you to think about it. If a seller was truly willing to take 15% off their asking price, wouldn't they just lower the price that they're asking by 5% to attract more showings and still protect the remainder of their value? Most sellers, even in a slower market, aren't just sitting around waiting to be rescued. They feel confident enough to hold out for their number or for the right buyer. And I want to fully acknowledge here, yes, negotiation can happen, but it should never be the foundation of your financial plan, because when you fall in love with a home based on the price you hope to pay instead of what it's actually listed for, you create a version of that home in your mind that doesn't really exist. And emotionally, you've just raised the bar for every other home that comes next, which leads us into the next emotional trap. What happens when the unicorn house, the rare, perfect, irreplaceable one, actually shows up, but you're not in a position to buy it? That's what we're talking about next. Just before we jump into that though, if you're even thinking about buying a home, whether it's in the areas we serve of White Rock, Surrey, or the surrounding municipalities, it could be anywhere in BC for that matter, you're gonna want to be sure to grab a copy of our free PDF, 21 grants and rebates for home buyers just like you. We pulled together every program we could find, from federal, provincial, and even niche local ones, and oftentimes overly confusing to even know if you qualify. So we've sourced them out and put them in one single spot for you to take full advantage of. It's totally free and could save you thousands. So you can get it now by using the link in the description of this video. Okay, now back to talking about the unicorn house. So I get it. You were not planning on falling in love. You were just looking, casually browsing, getting a feel for what's out there, and then boom, there it is, the unicorn. The home that checks every single box. The one with the layout that's in the neighborhood with those finishings. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. It's perfect. It's the kind of home you didn't even think existed until you saw it. And now everything has changed because suddenly this isn't just a house. It feels personal. It feels meant to be. But there's a problem. You're not ready to act. Maybe you still need to sell your current home. Maybe you're waiting on financing. Maybe you're still thinking about moving. Whatever the reason, you're just not in the position. And the unicorn, it's not going to wait. This is where buyers get stuck. They think they're the only ones looking at these beautiful homes and this beautiful unicorn home that has arisen out of the depths of all this other junk on the market. You are the only one in the world that is paying attention, and it's going to be there when you're ready for it. That's just not reality. And here's the problem, because once you've seen that perfect, irreplaceable home, you start planning your entire move around it, even though it's already out of reach because you're not ready. Everything else on the market now, it just feels like meh. Even great homes, they don't measure up because they're not that home. And what happens with this home? Well, it sells. It sells to somebody else. And What do? Well, you freeze, you hesitate, you tell yourself, well, maybe there'll be another one that will show up. And you wait. And the longer you wait, the more distorted your timeline becomes. You're no longer moving based on your needs. You're waiting for a once in a blue moon listing to magically appear with perfect timing and perfect conditions at the perfect price. Guys, that's not a plan. That's a fantasy. And the emotional cost of missing that unicorn, it can linger. Buyers look back years later and say, we should have bought that house. I still think about it every day, or I compare that to every home I see. I compare it to the one we ended up buying, and it just isn't the same because you were out looking when you shouldn't have been. You just simply weren't ready. And sometimes in the heat of the moment, they try to force it. They try to stretch their budget. They scramble to list their home. They waived all the conditions. And yes, sometimes it works out, but other times it leads to financial stress or emotional burnout or a rushed, chaotic move that didn't need to be that way. And many buyers, they never end up moving at all because they're still chasing that one perfect house. And life is just on pause. That's why the unicorn house, whether it's truly out of budget or simply bad timing, can quietly stall your entire decision-making process. So how do you avoid this trap and the other ones that we've addressed? Well, that's what we're going to talk about right now because we're going to walk through a safer, more stable approach to the process. So when the right home does show up, you're not just dreaming about it, you're actually ready to do something. So let's talk about that right now. Here's the truth. There's no way to control when the perfect house shows up, but you can control whether you're ready for it or not. So let's walk through a more grounded way to approach this whole process. Not a fantasy plan, a real one that is strategy that helps buyers stay clear-headed, confident, and ready when it matters. So what's step one? Well, step one is getting a realistic estimate of your current home's value. This is if you need to sell your home prior to actually being able to buy the next one. And this isn't the price of what you hope it's worth. Sellers have two numbers, what they hope it's worth and what the market likely will bear. And we're not talking about the numbers that your neighbor got 2 years ago. We're talking about a today-based market-driven number because this becomes the foundation for absolutely everything else. Step two is using that value to define your actual purchasing power. This means sitting down with your mortgage broker or lender, working through what you can afford after your current home sells. Maybe there's room for a buffer. Maybe there's a bridge financing as an option. But whatever the case, this is your real number, not your dream number. Step three, explore the market, but don't fall in love yet. Tour homes that are realistic within your price range. Look at neighborhoods, layouts, styles. Confirm that what you want actually exists and is actually available. But remember, this is a confirmation step, not a shopping spree. You're educating yourself, not emotionally committing to a property, especially if you need to sell your home before you can buy the next one. Step four is setting expectations based on the asking price, not assumed discounts. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting that most sellers are not going to negotiate, but again, the only safe assumption is that a seller might take asking price. Every dollar you negotiate off, that is a bonus. That's not a plan. If you build your budget on the idea that we'll just offer less, you're setting yourself up for disappointment and potentially some major delays. Step five, only enter the serious buying phase when you're truly ready to act. That means your current home is listed or even sold. Your financing is structured. You know exactly what you can afford. You can write confident, clean offers with timelines and terms that sellers are actually looking for. Because here's the thing that nobody wants to admit. Most buyers don't fall apart at the offer stage. They fall apart before that by setting unrealistic expectations and falling in love too soon with a home that they weren't prepared to buy. So where do we land with all of this? Well, if you're in the early stages, you're going to want to do yourself a favor. Be willfully ignorant of what you can't have yet. Use public tools like realtor.ca to get a feel for the market. Talk with your family about what matters, your priorities, neighborhoods, lifestyle, but don't start walking through homes you're not ready to buy. Don't fall in love with something because you can't pursue it right now, because the biggest cost isn't just missing the house, it's the emotional weight that comes with it. It's comparing every future option to something that's already gone, and it's putting your life on pause for something that may never come back, and it likely won't. If this feels familiar, if you've been here before, if you're heading down that road right now, the next video is going to help you even more. It takes on a bigger question that nearly every homeowner wrestles with that wants to move. Do I buy first or sell first? In that video, we're going to follow two fictional buyers, but both with very common mindsets. One who is going to buy first with a condition to sell their home, and the other who sells their home first and then buys something. You're going to see their struggles, their trade-offs, and learn why most buyers that start with one plan often end up pivoting to the other. If that sounds like it'd be helpful, that's because it is. And the good news is that video is coming up right now. One of these strategies feels safer, but in many markets, it quietly makes you a weaker buyer.